Happy day students. Today we'll be discussing visual arguments. Before we get into the topic of visual arguments, let us think about why we need to study visual arguments, right? So visual arguments basically, as learners, as observers or viewers of everyday life, we observe a variety of images in our daily life, right? We see hundreds upon hundreds of images. We may not look at these images at a deeper level. We just look at them at a surface level and then soon forget about them, right? Now, learning to understand or to use or analyze visual arguments helps us to understand the meaning behind these images, right? And it also helps us to understand how these hundreds of images, how they are used to influence us in our daily life, how they influence our thoughts, our decisions, and our imagination, right? So let's get into it. Let's understand what a visual argument is all about. Okay, so now a short introduction to visual argument. A visual argument is, of course, an argument that is made primarily using images that is intended to make the viewers or the audience to believe something or to do something, right? It also, so a visual argument will use multiple images to intensify or to emphasize the message to the audience, all right? And of course, we know that pictures, they play a huge role in bringing forth the message to us as the audience, right? And also when you use pictures, it tends to reach a wider range of the audience, all right? And also, images will also reflect the culture and practices of a particular sect or an organization of people. All right. So this is a very short introduction to what visual argument is all about. Now let's look at the elements or the components of a visual argument. Now the image that you see in front of you, this is a very famous image designed by James Flagg. All right. So it's this man in this image is known as Uncle Sam. All right. So this is a propaganda image which was actually created during wartime in America. So if you show this image to any American, it becomes very obvious and it's actually a very recognizable image, and it is so recognizable that it has become a part of American culture itself, right? Now what is this image? Why is it so famous? Why or how did it become so famous? What is the symbols or what are the layers behind this very simple looking image, right? So let's get into it. First of all, look at the image. It's a man who seems to be in his old age, right? It's an older man who seems to be pointing directly at us, the viewer, right? And he has a very serious expression going on, right? Now, what does he want to say? Look at the text. I want you for US Army. If you focus, the U is in red color. So the text here tells, I want you to join, I want you for US Army, right? If you notice, the emphasis is on you, right? And it is in red color. So it is aimed at us, the viewers, right? The immediate audience, all right? So that is the textual part of it, all right? Look at the colors used on this man, on Uncle Sam, right? So this figure, he's known as Uncle Sam. Look at the colors used. You have red, you have blue, you have white, and you have the star-spangled design on his hat, right? So now these colors, they actually draw upon the American flag, okay? So they draw upon the American flag so that they invoke the American national spirit in the viewers, all right? So basically, this is Uncle Sam who is appealing to young American men to join or to recruit, to sign up for recruitment in the US Army, right? Remember how I said this image was used during wartime in America, right? So here we have Uncle Sam directly appealing to us, the audience. He says, I want you for US Army, right? Where the U is stressed in red color, right? That's where the emphasis is. And you have the colors which invoke the American national flag, all right? And the text, there's a text below it which says nearest recruiting station, right? So he or this image wants us to take immediate action, right? Let's look at the symbolism behind it. Observe the expression on Uncle Sam's face, right? He is not smiling. He has a very serious expression on his face. Look at the gesture that he's making. He's pointing directly towards us, the audience, right? He's directly addressing us. This is a very serious matter that he's appealing to us for, right? He's appealing directly to American men to sign up for the American Army, for the US Army, right? And also, the expression tells us that It is a serious matter and he wants us to do this with urgency, right? So if you look at this image, look at the layers behind this image, all right, and what it wants to say. So now you understand why this image is become so famous, why it is now a part of American iconography itself, right? So that is the elements or the basic components of a visual argument, which is the image. You have the colors, then you have the text and the symbolism behind the image, right? So that is one example. Let's look at another example. Okay, so here we have a very striking image, all right? So you have a forested area. What immediately catches your eye is the barren land, right? At the edge of this forested land. So you see the contrast between the colors over there itself. So you have a green, lush area and then you have a brown, barren area, right? So remember how we spoke about the components of a visual argument, right? So the image itself shows us a forested land and then it shows us barren land, right? If you observe, the image is that of human lungs, right? Now what is the connection between human lungs and nature itself? There is a lot of connection. We use nature, we draw upon nature for our life source, right? Our basic function to live, that is breathing itself, is aided by plant life. So without plant life to sort of purify the air that we breathe, we cannot survive for long, right? Our quality of life decreases. So that is why this image immediately shows you the connection between our lives and of nature around us, right? So unless we put in the effort to conserve the environment, it cannot sustain us, right? The furthermore that we destroy nature, that's how less or that's how degraded our quality of life becomes, all right? So now look at the colors here. You have green, which symbolizes life, right? It symbolizes fertility, right? And then you have the brown color, which symbolizes barrenness. So it is barren land, all right? Which we assume that it has become barren because of human actions, all right? Then you have the text. So if you look at the text, it says before it's too late at the bottom of the picture. So what does that mean, before it's too late, right? So that's exactly what I mentioned before. Before it's too late to save nature to such an extent that we cannot reverse the damage that we've done on nature, the chances of us surviving on this planet lessens day by day, right? So that is the symbolism, or that is the layers behind this image, all right? So again, using the components of visual argument, which is image, then colors, then text and the symbolism behind it, we understand what this image wants to convey to us, the audience, right? So keep in mind, image as well as language plays a very important role to help us understand or to comprehend what this image wants to convey to us, right? Now we've looked at what a visual argument is, we've looked at what the elements of a visual argument are. Now we'll look at the types of visual arguments. So these are a few types of visual arguments. So first we have infographics. Now what are infographics? Very simple, infographics are just graphic representations of data, of knowledge, right? And the main aim of an infographic is to help us, the viewer, understand this data in a very clear and simple manner, okay? Another type of visual argument is your advertisements. Now we know advertisements, they use practices or techniques to gather the attention of consumers to a particular product or service, right? So advertisements are another type of visual arguments. Your third type is your political cartoons, which are also known as editorial cartoons, right? So these political cartoons, they use caricatures of popular political figures, and this is usually done where it expresses the artist's opinion of the latest political situation or scenario, right? Now political cartoons, they play a huge role in influencing public opinion, right? So that is one of the another major type of your visual argument. And then we have another type, which is memes, which is something that is very, very familiar to us, right? So memes are usually found on the internet. Now memes can be images, they can be videos, they can be phrases, they can be hashtags, right? What do memes do? They reference something culturally, right? It could be a cultural reference, it could be a humorous viewpoint, or it could project a satirical message, right? So this is something that memes usually do. So now these are just some of the major types of visual arguments. So we have infographics, we have advertisements, we have political cartoons, and then we have memes, right? Just some types of visual argument. Moving on. So basically, looking at a visual argument, what are we as learners, what are we supposed to do? We look at these images and we have to understand what this image is trying to tell us, and we have to analyze these images, right? Now take a look at this image, right? So here we have a mother and a son in a home setting, all right? So we have the mother who tells her son, honey, those wheaties are amazing. I bet you make varsity, right? So she can see that the bowl in front of him, if you notice, it says supplements, right? She knows that he's not eating cereals, rather he is intaking supplements, right? And however, she is encouraging this, right? She's saying continue taking this and you might make the college football team, right? Notice the expression of this young boy who is unusually bulked up or is unusually muscular, right? So we understand that there is some connection between what he's eating, that is the supplements, and his figure, right? And looking at the boy, we understand that he is unhappy with his situation, right? However, notice that the parent figure is encouraging towards him, and she says that continue doing this unhealthy practice of taking in supplements at such a young age, continue doing this so that you may succeed in life, right? Here what the artist has set out to do is to show us the rising trend among youngsters to take in supplements either to excel in their chosen field of sports or for appearance sake, right? Also, so as a viewer, somebody who is a young viewer looking at this, maybe if this is somebody who can relate to the situation, right, they look at this and they sort of analyze or take a different perspective at their own life, wherein they look at this image and wonder, is this how people look at us? Is this how others perceive us, right? So this image makes us think, right? It also shows us this very serious issue of supplement intake, of steroid use among youngsters, which can lead to a lot of damage to their body, to their mental health, right? So this image is also a poignant image which sort of makes us sit back and think, right? So this is how we again analyze an image or a visual argument, right? It is an argument, it is setting forth an idea, right? And it is sort of supporting this idea with an opinion, right? So here we have this image, we've looked at this image, we go beyond the surface level and we sort of try to figure out what the artist has set out to do here. Okay, and here the very simple message is that steroid use, intake of supplements among youngsters has to be curbed because it is a growing issue, it is an alarming issue which could damage the youth of the country, right? So that is how we analyze a image. Moving on, every visual argument or every image is trying to persuade us to do something, right? It tries to make us believe in something or tries to make us do something. Now, how does this image, how is it able to persuade us to do something? Now, there is something known as a rhetorical appeal, right? It's nothing but a formal way of saying that there are methods used to persuade the audience, right? Now, Aristotle, he suggested that there are three main methods which are used to persuade audience or viewers to convince them or to make them believe in something or make them take an action or do something, right? Now, these three methods are known as ethos, pathos and logos. Now, what are these words? Let us look at it, right? So, ethos refers to the credibility or trustworthiness of a source. Take a look at this example. Noted Harvard professor John Smith says, right? So it is appealing to the credibility of this professor, right? Where it says the noted Harvard professor John Smith says. So whatever he is saying could have some credibility towards it, right? So that is how it appeals to our ethos, right? That's how it puts forward ethos in its argument. Secondly, we have logos. Now logos uses reasoning, it uses logic to convey its message, right? Look at this example. According to a study performed by John Smith, right? So it puts forth a study, it puts forth reason, it puts forth logic to make us understand or to convince us that this is a study that you should take into consideration, right? So that is logos, which uses logic or reasoning. Finally, the third method is pathos. Now, pathos appeals to our emotions. It plays upon our emotions to persuade us to believe in something or to do something. Look at this example. poor John Smith who never got to see his puppy again, right? So it is sort of playing upon that emotion of sadness, right? We want to know what happened to poor John Smith's puppy, right? So here it sort of appeals to our emotions. So we have these three methods which are used in visual arguments to convince the viewer to believe in something or to do something. And these three methods are ethos, pathos and logos, which are primarily used in visual arguments to make the viewer take action, right? Now let's look at some examples. Okay, so the first example here which uses logos, right? We have an image of Superman here, and if you read the text, it says that drinking milk helps your bones to grow better. Why? Because milk has calcium, right? So it sort of uses, it also uses logical reasoning to make us believe that yes, drinking milk helps our bones to grow stronger. This is actually a message aimed at young children, right? So this image is part of an ad campaign for drinking milk, which was primarily aimed towards women and children. So here we have Superman himself saying, you know, you might not have grown up on Krypton, or you might not have bones of steel, but drinking milk can help you to sort of have strong bones that can make you, you know, healthy as me, right? So it sort of uses that sort of logic and reasoning to convince children to drink milk, right? So that's an ad which uses logos, right? Okay, so we have another ad here which uses pathos. So if you look at this image, it's a couple who are driving. If you look at the rear view mirror, there is a child in the back seat, right? The father is on his phone, he's looking at his wife is holding a map, and they're both communicating, they're talking to each other. There is a small child in the back seat who you can see in the rear view mirror. If you look towards the front, there is a child crossing the road who the driver, that is the father, does not notice the child, right? And look at the words written over there. Think of both sides, right? So again, this ad uses pathos. It sort of plays upon our emotions. Why? To make us consider the fact that we should pay attention towards the road and must not look away or be distracted, which could lead to accidents, which could hurt somebody else, someone's child, right? So this ad uses pathos in a great way to send forth this message. Another ad which uses ethos. Now how does this use ethos? We know that ethos plays upon the trustworthiness or the credibility of the source. So here we have this ad which says this cream has been backed by dermatologists, right? So when you see the word dermatologist, it sort of builds credibility, it sort of gives trustworthiness to that product which this woman is holding in this ad, right? So here we have these examples of ads which are using logos, pathos and ethos, right? Three methods to persuade the audience to do something or to believe in something, right? So each of these ads do use each of these elements to convince the audience, right? The best visual argument is one that uses all of these methods to persuade the audience. So a proper visual argument is one that combines logos, ethos and pathos, right? So in conclusion, what we can say is that learning to decode visual arguments is challenging, yes. Unless you are used to it, it does not come easily, right? So then what do? We look at an image, we go beyond the surface level and we try to understand exactly what this image is trying to tell us, right? Remember how we are bombarded with hundreds of images on a daily basis through social media, through television, through newspapers, magazines, books, etc., right? We come across so many images, we do not look beyond the surface level. We do not sit and think about what this image is trying to tell us, right? So now, knowing how to decipher or how to analyze a visual argument using image and text, right, as learners, we sort of do get a deeper understanding of what an image is actually trying to tell us, right? And we also need to be aware of how these images try to influence us on a daily basis, how they influence our decisions, our thoughts, our creative skills, our imagination, etc., right? So learning to recognize or to analyze these visual arguments, how do we do it? We look at the image, we look at the color, we look at the text, we look at the symbolism behind it. So this is how we would actually decipher or try to understand an image or a visual argument, right? Now, where do you find visual arguments? Basically, you find it in media, you find it in infographics, you find it in political cartoons, in your memes, etc., right? So these are all different areas where you will come across visual arguments, all right? And now, why are visual arguments so useful or how are they so important, right? They play upon the brain's processing power, right? So we have this strong visual processing skill or communication that goes on within us every day, every second of the day, basically, right? So when we learn to decipher visual arguments, what happens is that we build upon that skill of communication and understanding within us, where we use this image, we use the text, we combine them together, and we gain a deeper understanding of the image itself, right? So now as learners, as students, how this would help you is where you learn the power of an image and of text, where it combines together to give you a credible understanding of images which are all around us on a day-to-day basis, right? So I hope that was informative. I think from now on you could look at an argument or a visual argument at an image and then go beyond the surface level and understand what exactly this image is trying to tell us, right? All right then, so thank you very much.